consequence of understanding the conditional implications of a proprietary determinate lifespan. Furthermore, careful attention notices that I always express the obligatory schedule of payment in mathematically perfected economy as relating to consumption or depreciation of the related property. This careful expression, consumption, itself implies not only the answer to the preceding question, but the necessary definition of our terms, proprietary determinate lifespan, or lifespan. These are details of implementation, and we can wrongly assume that they are overwhelming because we have made ourselves accustomed to many obfuscations which have to now failed to truly explain or justify anything. This, in fact, is a consequence of a fact that the lie we call economy is itself wholly bereft of formal proof or theorem, which is itself a consequence of a fact it can only be bereft of formal proof and theorem because the very purpose of the lie is to obfuscate the currency for the sake of exploitation. We can now understand that the lie of pretended economy is terminal. We know the lie is not economy at all because in fact instead it is the contrary. It is a process which can only multiply wholly artificial and redundant cost upon us until we expire under a terminal sum of mere artificial, falsified indebtedness, existing itself in one of the greatest betrayals of humanity ever perpetrated. As Jack Shott often says, their days are numbered, and they know it. The other day, Jack, who's the founder of the European Central Bank's web presence, offered a few further questions on today's topic of implementation. I'd like now to share that discussion with you.
I have a question for Mike. If the USA was to transition to a mathematically perfect economy, read it, it's in your text.
Does that mean that everyone's wages would fall in parallel? Well,
he's out of curiosity to learn more, as he finds this an interesting theory.
See, here's the deal with that, Jack. The whole set of values is that we decide the value of the house and the basic value that we presume of the labor relative to our labor, which means that our labor stays the same and the value of the house stays the same as we perceived it. We've already judged that, and now we've committed to it. Nothing changes. Okay? Now that doesn't mean, however, that down the road, and you can play this back to them, you know, that doesn't mean that down the road, the house that was a $100,000 home with a 100-year lifespan in the year 2000 or the year 1950. Let's pick 1970 when it was accurate.
Okay.
The $100,000 home in 1970, exact same house. We might develop some kind of a robot or machine that puts up all the drywall. It doesn't take 3 guys 4 days to hang all the drywall, or 2 days to hang all the drywall, and 2 days to finish it. Instead, it's a 4-day job for a robot that costs nothing. you know.
Mm-hmm.
And now that part of that job is done for half as much. And well, that's only maybe, let's say, $10,000 or $5,000 of the $100,000 home, somewhere in there. And that reduces it to half the cost. That reduces the cost of that house to, let's just say, $97,500. Saved us $2,500. So that $100,000 house in 1970 is now a $97,500 house, you know. And that's all there is to it, you know. But why?
Yep.
Because we're getting less wages? No, because we invented a machine that saved that much work, so we're not getting paid that. The wages don't even exist because we've got a robot doing that now. Is somebody going to buy that house instead of the 1970 house? No, because the de-escalated rates of depreciation or consumption mean that the 1970 house at that point, and it was done by hand with tender loving care, this machine makes mistakes, it doesn't account for bent studs like a human being can feel them and all that. It tries, but it doesn't do it anywhere near as good. In truth, it's a better job than the 1970 house, but it's had all the wear and tear on it too. There are scratches in the walls and things like that have been painted over. But you're paying $5 a month for the 1970 house, and you're paying $250 a month for the 2012 house built in part by robots now because of the de-escalated rates of depreciation. But wages don't change for the same thing unless we decide, well, those wages weren't justified. Okay. But it's our decision. Are our wages going to go down? No. Our employers can afford for the first time to give us just wages. If anything, wages will probably go up. Why? Because the store machinist in a machine shop, for instance, can now afford to go out on his own. You know? Yep. And the contractor for that outfit that he's working for knows damn well when they come into the shop, they go to the office, and then they send him out into the shop area. And this guy that runs a Bridgeport mill like nobody else, who's the whole reason this product can be made for the price it is, he's the reason that everything ticks. Now, if he wants to go out on his own, he can get a just wage because he can get paid the whole shot for doing the operations that he's doing instead of that company that outfit that he's working for getting a cut of it. See? So that company is compelled to pay him just wages for his work, which it can't afford to pay now because of all this multiplication of artificial indebtedness. So if anything, our wages will likely go up because people won't keep people working for them unless they pay them what they can get if they can go out and compete with them on their own. In some cases, that can't happen. But you're not going to employ a factory if you're paying minimum wage, you know, and under atrocious conditions, and those people can get employed at far more enjoyable work doing something else. So what are you going to do if you're a mag wheel factory or something like that? Well, you're going to automate your processes so human beings don't have to do that anymore if you're going to survive. You know, all the handling is going to have to be automated. So these guys don't manually run buffing wheels in a buffing shop, breathing all this shit, you know, through masks, you know, that respirators that don't filter this stuff out, and they die in 10 years, you know, because their lungs are so full of crap. You know, they're not tipping mag wheels off hooks going across the ceiling that have come out of a so-called degreaser machine that's trichloroethylene, and the chemicals are laying in a puddle in the wheels, and they spill in the person's face, and they lose their eyesight. You know, they're not suffering all that. You're going to pay me a wage that just justifies me being here because I'm going to get another job. We're prospering now. You know, and what does that mean? Well, it might mean that instead of polishing mag wheels, they're finished rough. You know,
and taxes will go down as well, I guess, no?
taxes will go way down because we're paying mostly for artificial multiplication of principal into far greater principal, and then we're paying interest on that because we can't pay the principal down at all. And the principal just keeps going up. So we're eliminating all that because we're eliminating all that in one fell swoop, because when we transition to mathematically perfected economy, we're counting all prior payments of interest toward principal. We wouldn't even have accumulated all this new principal, artificial principal, or debt, because we've already paid these things, as I've said many times over. So our taxes are going to go way down, and we're not going to allow our taxes to be taken directly from our accounts. There's this mandate outlaws income tax. Can't have income tax. If you have opted into a program, if your children, you've got 5 children and it costs $500 a month to educate each one of them in whatever schools they're in, that's $2,500 a month. That can come directly out of your account if you opt into that school system. If you can't pay that, you go for a cheaper education, or you educate them at home, or we do this another way, such as every kid gets a computer, and they get a new computer every 5 years, and they have to pay the cost of repairing that computer if they don't take good enough care for it. And all their classes, though they might be educated at home, come online. Instead of having textbooks, it's all electronic. Can we have interactive classrooms? Absolutely. We can have interactive classrooms. And so one teacher can handle as many kids, but they don't have to give the lesson. They have to support the lesson. Whatever improvements we can make, we can do them. So we can make all these things continually less expensive to ourselves, but we can't even maintain the schools now because of all the indebtedness that's been multiplied, not just on the schools, but everything else, so that we can't afford education any longer. So that's the differences. But the wages, in effect, stay wherever they have to be. They stay.
Is there a page on your website that, other than the 100,000 houses, is there something else on your website that basically?
There's an article which was my response to Patrick Hedemark on the the cost of money. Let me look for it for you 1 second here. I'll find it for you. This is that question is, I guess it's justified. The original question you asked. Well,
it's not one-on-one, there's more to it, but at the end of the day, it will cause inflation, or not?
What will? There is no inflation in mathematically perfected economy.
No, I thought you were talking about my first question, because I saw this Ron Paul interview today on CNBC, and he says, it's unbelievable, he says, inflation is fraud. I think it's theft, it's stealing, it's taxation without representation. And then I say, well, if inflation is fraud, then interest is fraud.
Absolutely. 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 You hit the nail on the head because you understand these things now, But that's the true crux of the matter, and he's advocating interest. He just throws all these slogans out there as if he's going to save us from the very things he's going to cause when the Austrian economists, so-called, get their way with the higher rates of interest, ostensibly to prevent us from borrowing, so much.
I love it. I love it.
Talk about utterly brain dead, But here's the title of this article is determining the. Excuse me, I'm waiting for. Determining the value of money, property, and production. it answers those questions. It may not be, it may be more in between the lines on this particular.
Answer to a question from New York.
Pardon me?
It is answer to a question from New York. How to determine the value of money.